as to how I achieved where I am today. I grew up in Texas. I'm a Texan by birth. You always see me, I have boots on, so I have boots on today. I am from a family of educators, mother, grandparents, teachers, principals, and I said that education would not be the journey that I would take. I always wanted to be a medical surgeon, and I had begun that journey. And I started it very young by engaging in after-school programs, of course being directed by parents to engage and be active. They always said a mind that is not engaged is a mind that's going to get in trouble. So to find something to do. So I was in Upper Bound, which is a TRIO program that works with a lot of youth in grades 9 through 12. And it was housed at Purdue University, which was 50 miles from my home. But my mother made sure that I got there 3 times a month. So 3 times a month, and then in the summertime, spend 8 weeks. So that gave me no time to do some things that perhaps I would want to do. But through that experience, it introduced me to the sciences, where I became very excited and passionate. I had a chance to lead African-American faculty at Purdue in the sciences that allowed me to observe and to inquire about STEM and if I could do it and the opportunities that existed. And I had a chance to also meet some young men and women that were beginning their pre-med into preparing for medical school. So it said to me, I could do this too. So upon finishing high school, I did go to Purdue and did very well. Earned my bachelor's in biology, chemistry with a pre-med focus, and then applied to med school. And in my first few weeks of college, I should say, within a month in college, my mother was in a very critical accident. My brother and I and sister were in college. With her being our primary provider, I had to determine what could I do or what could we do together. But from her bed, she encouraged us to stay focused and stay connected. And we stayed in college. And she went through a tremendous amount of rehabilitation. Being the only child, there were no aunts and uncles, just her mother that was still living, that was up in age. I finished college, my brother finished college. I went off to University of Texas in San Antonio, and that's when I got a call stating that my grandmother had passed, and I had to make a decision, and I went back home because we were not going to put mother into a nursing home. And that's when I started teaching high school science. So I took a stop on my journey to med school and came home to teach and take care of mother. And then teaching science, I realized that I was pretty good at it. I taught at Urban High School, became teacher of the year, and the principal saw something in me and said, you should consider administration. I said, no, I've got to figure out a way to get into med school. So while in my teaching, I went back and earned my master's in biology, since I was teaching biology, and then in education, so that it would help justify what I was doing. During that time, I had a chance to go to the dentist, and I shared with him my challenge. He was an African-American prominent dentist in Houston. And I said, you know, I always wanted to go to med school and be an emergency medical surgeon, but I just don't know how I can do it now. He said, well, you ever think of dentistry? I said, never have. And I did some research, took the exam, passed it, applied to one school that happened to be in Houston, 5 miles from our home. So that's what got me into that journey into dental school. But 2 years into it, I realized this isn't the medical surgery that I want, but I'm going to stick to it because I'm in it and I'm going to complete it. And I did. And through that journey, I became Dental Student of the Year, did some research on Listerine, and that back in the 80s, Listerine was talking about killed germs on contact, and I wanted to understand exactly what it was, and also did something on the orange lozenges, if you remember the lozenges, and where would they have them located? Right at the counter when you would check out. Do you see them anymore? happened was with that, when you suck on it, it began to break down your enamel. So after a while, that was some of the research that I was able to find out on the acidity that was in that. So it showed that I could also do the research, got a scholarship to help me finish dental school. Then I left and went to University of Rochester to do postdoctoral work and to work at Eastman Dental School and Anthony Jordan Healthcare Center. I was said to be an excellent dentist, excellent clinician, and I had a chance while there met a young lady, and she asked if I would come and be a mentor to urban youth. They were trying to increase the representation of underrepresented, economic disadvantaged, first-time college students in STEM. And I said, I have to do that because someone helped me. I don't know how I can do it with my rotation at the hospital, but I'm going to make an effort to do it. And it was through that experience that reconnected me to education, because I began to see a light go out in so many eyes, the young men that I work with, who would come in and bluntly tell me what they were not going to do. And I would bluntly say, well, I'll show you what you will do. And I was much younger, but a spitfire. So I've always been known as that disciplinarian, that one that would really push a student to achieve. And when I was in preparation to return to Texas, the college approached me and asked if I would consider a one-year appointment to come and help them open a new center that looked at STEM and healthcare for underrepresented youth. And I said, yes, I'll commit 1 year to go in and support you in this effort. 24 years later, I've never looked back, because I began to reconnect with a passion to really do justice, to show our young men and women that you can achieve, regardless of the destination that we may think we want to go. We have a passion and the skill and ability to achieve. It is through that mentorship, that encouragement that I met through Dr. Betty Jo Hopkins, who was one of the first African-American females to earn a PhD in biophysics from the University of Rochester. And she mentored me and said, you may have a great opportunity if you choose to stay in higher education. And I said, Dr. Hopkins, I don't think that's anything I'm going to consider, but I do appreciate it. And in her own way, she began to put me on appointment, on committees to do projects. And everyone would speak about how I presented in the details of presentation. 4 years later, they opened and built a brand new campus, and I was called and asked if I would serve as this acting urban campus executive. Of course, I was honored, and I accepted the challenge to do it. 1 year into it, I realized I liked this. Search opens again, I apply, and I get the job. So after serving in that capacity, I transitioned to Virginia, where I served as a provost for a college that served 45,000 students, with the goal that I made up my mind that I wanted to be a college president, and to be able to lead, change, introduce programs, offer the support that would ensure a college growth and development, and be able to be a change agent and a role model for persons that look like me. I've served, this is my second presidency. I was president at Schenectady County Community College in Schenectady, New York, where I transformed a community college that was on the decline to be one of the leading colleges in the State University of New York. We built 2 additional centers, our first residence halls, launched several new programs, and put the college on the map. So when this opportunity opened here in Pittsburgh, I thought, well, this may be my last one, my last journey, to come to what I identified as a leading college for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. 4 campuses, 4 centers serving almost 50,000 students. So to be an aspiring leader, African American, I'm honored to be in this role and to offer direction, address the challenges, and to really make a positive difference. So when I look at the opportunities relevant to the global economy and the importance of education, look at where the U.S. is in that range, in the top 25, and then I look at how can we now inspire our young men and women that are in the educational pathways to ensure that they engage in some level of education and and to understand what college means. It's not necessarily always the four-year degree, but it is education. You must do some level of education and preparation. And what we are encouraging now is for our young men and women to engage before college in programs that will allow them to pre-test and to identify the areas of deficiency and take advantage of programs while in high school to address those deficiencies relevant to reading, writing, and mathematics. And why do I say that? Almost 50% of our students come to college and have to spend a year or more in developmental course credit that does not go toward any degree, a significant amount of money. But if we get them to pre-test while in high school, they will come college ready and go right into their coursework to achieve their college degree. When you compare public education and you're determining where to go, I always look at how do you minimize the debt. If you take the first 2 years at a community college, and speaking relevant to national numbers and statistics, you can save about $19,000 by completing the first 2 years when you compare first 2 years at a public institution. If you take 2 years and compare it to a private university, you're saving about $54,000. And you're earning your associates, and you can transfer it to a four-year college of choice to complete your bachelor's degree at that college of choice. That does not change your long-term goal of interest. So I encourage our students to really explore the areas that are growing in high demand: IT, healthcare, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. These are the future. Advanced manufacturing technology, in this area of natural gas and oil, and the list goes on. So it's unlimited. In Pittsburgh Public Schools, of course, you have an opportunity to engage in dual enrollment courses that's paid by Pittsburgh Promise dollars. So if you are a Pittsburgher, I encourage you to identify opportunities that will allow you to engage in that study now. If you consider this community college as your next step, I have an open door policy. I engage with students and talk, I mentor, and offer any assistance and guidance that I can provide to ensure their success. I enjoy what I do, and will do anything I can to see anyone achieve their educational goals. So on behalf of the college, faculty, and staff, and the Board of Trustees, and today's guests, I welcome you to the Community College of Allegheny County, the college that we embrace and celebrate student success. And look forward to engaging each of you as we talk about where you go from here. The opportunity is in your hand. So thank you very much for the opportunity to give you some brief remarks.
I'm going to bring out real quick to introduce our guest, our keynote speaker. Before I do that, I think Commander Holmes is here. Would you stand, please? Along with Commander Holmes during that time period when we were doing the roundtable, I think Ted Johnson, are you here? Ted Johnson is now the new president of Noble, the organization of police, give me the acronym.
National Organization of
Black Law Enforcement Officers, okay? I want him to also, he is going to also participate with Chief Commander Holmes and Chief McClay during that session and talk about the issues we mentioned earlier, okay? So without further ado, I'm going to bring up Allegheny.
Okay. As usual, we're running a little late, but don't worry about it because it's going to be so valuable we'll forget about the time anyway. I mentioned earlier about being bold, and where I asked our students to be bold. Bold was exemplified by Chief McClay when he tweeted that your life is valuable. I want to take that and I want you, how many of you are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook? All right. So throughout this day, I want you to find time to tweet, post on Facebook, send a picture on Instagram about what you're doing here today. Be bold and show your friends that someone cares about them, that you're bold enough to step forward and start pursuing your life dreams. The only way they know about it is if we tell them. Use the social media to tell them. Talk about being bold. It's a perfect segue into our keynote speaker. I got the pleasure of meeting him today. I've heard about him for several years. I thought he had a Pittsburgh connection because he has supported our organization so much and so frequently. As he told me today, all he does is get a phone call and he's in, which is fantastic. But Everett Devon Kelly is an entrepreneur, coach, author. Presents a challenge to each of us by asking, what will be your legacy? In 2003, Devon Kelly has grown his premier business, Novad Management Consulting, from a one-man shop to a multi-million-dollar company employing over 150 employees, consultants in Washington, D.C. metro area, Atlanta, Tacoma, New York, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Santa Ana, California. Novad provides project management, strategic planning, business processing, re-engineering, financial advisory services, asset and property management, IT support, training and coaching services. Before establishing Novad, Devon Kelly garnered over 15 years of experience in commercial banking, general accounting services, organizational assessment, and project management with both the federal government and large private industry organizations. Devon Kelly continues to leverage his business acumen, opening My Barber's Lounge, a chain of upscale barbershops in the Greenbelt in Fostersville, Maryland. In its first year of operation, My Barber's Lounge was recognized as the best barbershop in Prince George County, followed by the 2014 Best Barbershop Award at the 12th Annual Neighborhood Award hosted by radio personality author Steve Harvey. The Social Consciousness and Entrepreneur Service, as the board chair of the Boys Town of Washington, D.C., and a member of the board of directors for the Network of Teaching Entrepreneurship. Devon Kelly has taught the value of team and sportsmanship as an assistant varsity basketball coach at Episcopal High School since 2003. Shares his wisdom in his book, From Courtside to the Boardroom, a legacy in the making. For those of you who don't already have a copy of the book, you're going to get one today at no charge. Make sure you stop by and have Mr. Kelly autograph that for you. For those of you who already have the book, make sure you stop by, have a conversation with them, and have him autograph it today. So we thank you for that. With no further ado, I'm going to introduce you to an old man, Mr. Everett Devon Kelly.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm humbled by the invite that I have to speak to you guys today. As mentioned earlier, when I get the chance to support young black men in an organization that promotes success, I jump at the opportunity. I get a phone call, whatever I need to do, I'm in. This is the first opportunity I've had to actually speak to some of the success stories that I hear about when I just donate my black women, okay, men and women on here, so that's even better for me with regards to that. I am not a statistic, I am Devon Kelly. That is some powerful stuff right there, right? So that's what we're here about, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. When you hear about that, you talk about, man, I'm growing up, everyone's telling me I'm going to be a statistic, I've overcome statistics, here I am sitting in front of you today, and people said, hey, you won't even make it to 25 out of the area that you grew up, I'm not a statistic, right? And so I've overachieved. Well, really, I wasn't a statistic ever, you know? I was a young man trying to be successful, just like a non-African person trying to be successful. All we're trying to do is be successful in life. So last night I was in my hotel room when I got up here, and I said, hey, look, let's find some things about failure is important to success. So I wrote down a couple things, a couple quotes and things like that. I'm going to ask the audience to raise their hand if they know the person that I'm referring to. A famous person who was defeated 7 times running for political office. Absolutely, Abraham Lincoln. See, I didn't know that till last night either, right?
A cartoonist who was told by the editor of the Kansas City newspaper, it is easy to see these sketches that you have no talent. You don't have any idea. Charles Schultz, look. Walt Disney. Tough to be Walt Disney, right? Go down and forward and figure out what Walt Disney has done since you've been told that. 23 different publishers. I'm sorry. A famous singer who was fired after his first performance at the Grand Ole Opry. Anybody? Elvis Presley. Wow. Right? So we start thinking about failures and then look forward to success. A famous author who lived in welfare for years in an apartment infested with mice. Anybody? Yes, sir. Absolutely, for the Harry Potter series, right? Again, information I didn't know until last night about 9 o'clock in between the halftime of the basketball game. An inventor who was thrown out of school in the early grades because his teachers thought he could not learn.
Albert Einstein.
Nope, not Albert Einstein. Close. Thomas Edison. An inventor of fried chicken recipe that was rejected by more than 1,000 restaurant owners. Colonel Sanders, right? So we don't want to be him now. So those are just a mere list of those people who, at the beginnings of their careers, at the beginning of their start, absolutely ended up successful. I am no different from any of those people. When I started off NOVAD in 2003, everyone said, hey, you got a good job, making 6 figures. Why would you leave that to start something new? Because you told me that I could. That was the only reason that I did it. I am a competitive nature. I have played sports all my life. Sports is the foundation for which I have been successful. I often speak to my employees, to my boardrooms, using sports acronyms and things like that. And I did it because I wanted to be successful. So like the bio said, it was me, it was a laptop, and saying, okay, now what? And that's where we were. So bringing forward to 2014, we've now been in business now 13 years. We went from that one-man shop, as you heard, to over 150 employees across the country. And so by most people's terms, they have deemed me successful. When I'm asked that question about being successful, I don't always have the answer because I don't know what that is. My success may be different from your success. And as you sit here before me, I don't know what that is, right? And so you have to define your own success. Others at your age and others my age will try to define what that success is. I won't allow that to happen, right? So even if I started in 2003 and didn't make it to 2004, I still would have said I was successful. You know why? Because I was bold, as we listened to, enough to step out and say, I can do it. To just do that is successful for me. I was lucky, I was blessed to have good mentors in my life. Started with my basketball coaches, started with some people in business who said, hey, don't allow something or don't allow failure to stop what you're trying to do. And I did. For those who are in here who are top business people and things like that, you all know that you will get more no's than yes in this area, right? I have been told no more times than I will ever be told yes, right? But those that I kept fighting for to get to yes have now proved my success. In my book, I talk about the lessons that I've learned to become successful. But more important, I talk about the legacy in which I want to give back. Most people say, oh, the legacy that you want to do is about money, about buildings, about cars, about this and that. Not for me. My legacy is the same legacy that my first mentor had. That when that young man or that young woman grows up to be my age, goes back and writes down a piece of paper and says, that guy, Mr. Kelly, told me that one thing that sticks with me today. My very first mentor was a guy by the name of Carol Holmes. Now, if you read the book, his name is not mentioned because we tried to hide some of the names in the book, but his name is Carol Holmes. Carol Holmes had saw me running around the corners, running around, and said, hey, I was a tall, lanky kid, and says, hey, I really like him to be on my basketball team. However, my mom, because she was working 2 jobs and things like that, said, I can't get him up to the gym, so you got to come pick him up. Carol, being a recreational facility director, said, well, I'll come pick him up, but guess what? I need to pick him up at 5:45 because Mr. Holmes was delivering newspapers in the morning. So 5:45 in the morning, he came by, picked me up, and we started delivering newspapers every morning. Right? First day, he brought me back home around 1 o'clock. He finished working me out. Back up, mom said, "Nope, that's not happening. You got it for the entire day." Right? That's not happening. So this started my journey about learning about hard work, being prepared, and then saying, you know what? I can be something different. Now, you'll ask, well, where does that come from? Well, that area where I was going to the rec center every day, 5:45 in the morning, working out, guess who else came to that rec center? Right? Anybody know about Seat Pleasant, Maryland? Anybody know about Seat Pleasant, Maryland, NBA, anything like that? Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant grew up in that same recreational center, same corners that I ran around, same people that I hung out with. Same guy grabbed him and said, "Hey, come on, shoot some hoops here, let's see what we can do." Carol Holmes is still in that rec center right now, watching kids grow up just like me become successful. Different levels of success, right? Same foundation which we started. I would not allow people or the Prince George's County area to define who we were. In the book, we talk about lessons learned. So when you read the book, it goes through the chapter. So in the autobiography, it talks about an autobiography in there. It really wasn't an autobiography. It really was a chance for me to write down some of the things that got me to where I was today. I was in Texas at a conference, at an empowerment conference, and I was trying to drum up business for my company, and I was down there networking, and I was doing my thing, and a young lady came up to me and said, "Man, Mr. Kelly, you were involved in everything. What will your legacy be?" And I was like, "Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Hey, I need some money from Wells Fargo. Let's talk about that." And I tried to get back on the subject. I walked away from it and realized that I had given her the worst answer that a human being possibly could answer, right? Because all I wanted to do was get back to business. I'm not all about business, right? I'm not about that. So I went up to my hotel room, I wrote down some notes and said, "Hey, this is what, if someone ever asks me that question again, this is what I want to write down. This is what I want to answer." Well, that was probably around 8 o'clock that evening. 2 years later, it took me to write down the real answer, that it ended up being that book, right? I applaud anyone who's written a book, because my book is only 90 pages, it took me 2 years. My mom's got a PhD in English, and she couldn't believe that I was born her son. And it took me that long to write a book. But it is some self-reflecting moments within that book. One of the things that we did in that book was at the end of each chapter, we asked yourselves a few questions, right? And we asked you to ask yourself a few questions. Why is that important? Because if I had been asked those questions when I was young, maybe I would have done my legacy a little bit different, right? What we found when we first introduced the book was that it was meant for young people, men, women, young boys, girls, and things like that. But then we had some adults read, and guess what happened? Those adults started asking themselves the same question: what would my legacy be, right? And so then that ended up forming some of the foundations of what they wanted their legacy to be, and then they started passing that on to young people. Then all of a sudden, I got some calls about some other mentoring groups that said, "Hey, we'd like you to come speak to this group and talk about that." Then what I was finding was that I was no longer speaking, I was just introducing the topics, and guess what? It's what I wanted to happen. The adults in the group started mentoring the kids there. So I laid the foundation for them to be successful. Because when I leave today, I hope that you guys as adults will continue to strive to mentor these kids, because we need it. I needed it, and there's so many more that need it as well. I've been coaching high school basketball for capacity. When we had a game on Thursday night, we won our game here and like, "Hey, coach, what are you doing this weekend?" We had an off weekend, and said, "I'm going up to speak about the book." And everybody was excited. "Hey, what are you going to talk about?" On Thursday night, I had no idea. Right? So I was like, I'm not sure. Here's the topic. Here's what we're doing. Then I thought back that we had lost a big game on Tuesday night. And I said, guess what, guys? This failure tonight is going to lead to our success later on. Boom. That was the email that I got from Mr. Valentine. What we're going to do. Right? I got it. The failures in life aren't just in business. They're in everything that you do. Right? In everything that you do. Someone's going to sit there and go, "Man, I missed it. Man, I should have done that differently." But guess what? It's going to lead you to the foundation of being successful later on. And that's what's happened to me today. You know, you get up to the mic, I'm sitting there listening, get up to the mic, and those who are sports, and I come out here to play in the golf tournament with this sponsor, I have a good time. And the guy in front of you hits a drive, just boom, boom, just knocks it out. Here you go. Man, I'm next. Right? That's just how I felt sitting right there. Right? I go, man, look at all these achievements, mentals, and here I am, this little guy, I'm sitting there going, I'm next. Right? But guess what? I'm going to stand before you because I'm not fearful of failing. I don't use the language in any meetings that I have. I won't let my employees use it. I won't let anybody use it. In April of 2013, we were awarded a contract in Oklahoma City to build a call center in Oklahoma City where we would service HUD loans, FHA loans, and so forth. It is one of the biggest contracts a small business can get in a government contract, period. It is high profile, lots of money, awards, right? We have been chasing this contract forever, right? It was April 18th that I got called. I was on the golf course. If everybody remembers April 18th, actually 15th. April 18th, that was Good Friday, right? So during the spring and things like that, I do play a lot of golf, so I decided I'm going to play golf with my buddies. There's one person within our organization who can get me, other than my wife, who can get me that day, and that is my assistant. So I put my phone in my bag, boom, it's in my bag, I don't get it. There was some slow play in front of us, so I pick up the phone and check it. She's left me about 10 messages. Call me, call me, call me. On April 18th, we were awarded a $50 million contract for 5 years. If I don't pick up that phone and get to her, who knows what will happen, right? Who knows, maybe they go, hey, he's not really serious. I have no idea, right? The other parts of that is that she wasn't supposed to be in the office. It's Good Friday. I had already dismissed everybody. But she said, hey, look, I believe in what this company is doing. And so Nikki, she works her butt off to do it. So she picked up that call. I get it, we're excited, I'm calling people, buying drinks for everybody, we're excited. 2 weeks later, the contractors protested. Boom, just that quickly, they take it off. Here we are facing failure to none that I hadn't been doing yet. So what do? I rally up the troops, that's okay. Let's put that on hold, let's keep moving. In June of last year, the protest was lifted, and they said, okay, you now won, you have 90 days to open up the facility that houses 175 people with computers and everything like that. You have 90 days to do it. I live in Washington, D.C., right? People don't hold leases waiting for you to do it. So obviously that lease that I originally had was gone. On a plane, real estate agent, here we go. 2 real estate agents found a place on the phone for me and said, hey, Mr. Kelly, we have a spot for you. Come on in. We get there. All right? As soon as we get off the plane, we drive over there. You can tell by the look. They look at us. We're not sure that's the spot for you. Wait a minute. I'm here with a suit. I had a suit on. I look like I can spend money. I know, well, what's the problem? We're not sure at this point. I'm literally talking 24 hours for us to get on the plane. No problem. What can I do? So then me and my project director, we did say, okay, enough of the real estate, let's go find it ourselves. We found an old AOL building that's in Shepherd Mall. It's a rundown area that used to be booming. Now it's a rundown. I said, hey, this is perfect. It's a mall, it's a good area, blah, 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 so forth. We get the area, but when we write the lease up, we get it. Those 2 real estate agents that we had, guess what? They called. Hey, we can get a better deal. I'm not sure I can help you right now. Not sure we can do it. Because they weren't serious about what we actually were going to bring to that area. The economy, jobs, right? Jobs in that area, right? Visibility to that area. Those things that you will get defined as soon as we got off the plane. As soon as we walk on the plane, they had already defined us. They hadn't done a Google search on us. They had done it. They just said, oh, no, they're not getting that area. That company is not coming to that area, right? When in fact, we're probably 50-50 on the sales force in Oklahoma City, African Americans to Caucasians. But as soon as me and my project director are fully African American, walk off that plane. And I think that's what they thought. I tell you that because you're going to face these challenges every single day. And if anybody tells you differently, they're not telling you the truth. It's not how you react to that challenge at that moment. It's how you say, let me turn this around to a challenge to me. Right? So now I left out of that car, I got in a car, I said, we are determined to find a space. We're determined to be successful. We have now gotten accolades from the mayor of Oklahoma City. We have a meeting with the governor in 2 weeks because of the jobs we have brought down and the opportunities we now have done. NOVAD is now known in Oklahoma City, and guess who's in Oklahoma City that now I got at dinner with and now who's on my side? Kevin Durant. See Pleasant High School, see Pleasant Recreation Center. Now guess who wants to talk to me? Everybody wants to talk to me now, right? So this is what I mean, that everything comes full circle, right? I am full circle because I'm sitting here speaking to you today, right? I was once sitting in the seat that you're sitting on there, sitting there going, man, I get it. But I can't be that next one up. I can't be that guy that's going to be up behind him. Yes, you can. You absolutely can be that next person, right? When we were growing up, they told me, hey, you can be the president of the United States. No, that's not happening. There's no way you can't believe that right now. They told me, hey, Mr. Kelly, you can't open up those 2 barbershops. You can't have a barbershop with 14 people in each shop. They'll go bananas. They'll start fighting. Why not? Sure you can. Sure you can, right? Why did I do it? Because they told me no. Because they told me no. Only reason. Oh, you can't put a barbershop in Forestville. What do you mean? I grew up in Forestville. How can I not put a barbershop in Forestville? These are all things that allow me to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be different. I'm going to be successful, right? And those are the things that I encourage you guys to do. I encourage you guys to say, you know what? Take that challenge head on, right? Take every rejection as an opportunity. There's a quote that I always use. And it's tough for me to read it because I think it's important for us to get it absolutely 100% right. I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Thomas Edison gained knowledge from each of these failures to invent the light bulb that we're using. When the person tries to throw dirt on you and say, you're done, shake it off. Shake it off. Stand up and say, you know what? I got this. Grab somebody to help you learn. Grab somebody who wants to make a difference in your life. Take yourself away from the negativity that will surround you, because it will surround you. I don't want to be a part of that group. Be different. Want to be different. You were challenged to get on Twitter, challenged to get on Facebook. I will admit, I just got my Twitter account 2 days ago, so I'm trying to figure it out. But challenge yourself to be different. Hit a Twitter button. Tell somebody you are here today to be something different. Be bold, right? Be bold in what you do. Then you will stand up here 10 years from now. You will then tell me, hey, Mr. Kelly, here's my legacy. Here's what I want to do, right? Here's my legacy. And you will stand up here and you will say, I am not a statistic, I am Devon Kelly. I appreciate the time. Again, anybody who wants to sign the book, I'd be glad to sign the book out there as long as I can before my plane leaves. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I will always be a supporter of this chapter. I will try my best to get more involved in our chapter in Washington, D.C., because they are doing bigger and better things. Again, increase your network to increase your network, right? The people that are here that are going to speak to you at the round tables, they are not only going to speak to you, guess who else they're going to speak to? Me. I'm going to a round table and tell them, hey, here who I am, let me hear some words. Because those words of wisdom are very important, and hopefully you'll take it to heart. Again, I thank you for the time and the consideration.
Be bold.
Yes.
So we're at the point we're going to adjourn out to the tables. I'm going to ask the students to stay put for a moment. We're going to have the professionals go ahead out and man the table. Students, I'm going to break up into groups of 5. So I'm going to challenge you, the students. I know you're here with friends. You got your partner next to you. You've already been talking to each other and everything. I'm going to ask you to break that up. I'm going to ask you to sit at a table with other people. Because these other students are also going to be part of your network. So expand your network that way as well. When we get out there, we're going to hear from our law enforcement experts. We'll have lunch, and we'll begin the roundtables. All right? So sit tight, students, for a quick minute, and then we'll come and get you when we're ready for you.
Chief McClay is probably going to be the one speaking. And right now, I'm just going to give you a few little background on Chief McClay based on his bio. He's been in the Pittsburgh Police Chief since September 15, 2014. He was formerly a consultant for the International Association of Chiefs of Police and the captain of the Madison Police Department in Wisconsin. As captain, Chief McClay has last served as a district commander and was responsible for overseeing all aspects of police operations. He specialized in managing police community relations and leadership development. He served as a lieutenant from 2002 to 2005, serving as a shift commander, district patrol operations commander, and a SWAT tactical team commander. As a sergeant from 1995 to 2002, McClay worked with narcotics and gang units. As a patrol officer, McClay became a full-time training officer. Without further ado, I'm going to bring up Chief McClay, and he will be followed by Ted Johnson, who is, again, president of Noble. Okay? Thank you. Chief McClay.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'll keep my comments brief because there's some really important conversations we want to have about police, your interaction with police, and how we keep those safe and respectful. Okay. By way of introduction, though, I just want to tell you a couple of things about who I am and why it is that I'm here. When I came, I was really tasked with a number of challenges, but you package them up just right, it really boils down to three. Number one, I had to restore the relationship between the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police and the communities that we serve, particularly our communities of color. There was a divide that was harming both the communities and the police bureau, and important priority for me to fix that. Number two, I have to reduce the violence that's causing such incredible harm to our communities of color here in Pittsburgh. And number three, I have to improve the diversity of my police department. Citizens living in a free society have a reasonable expectation to see themselves reflected back in their police department. So those are my three biggest challenges, and I'd argue they're all interrelated with one another. I have to restore the relationship between our police bureau and our communities of color. We, the police, are simply a reflection of and part of the communities that we serve. We don't stand alone. We are not separate. We are a community. We're simply those elements of the community who are paid to do what is every citizen's responsibility, and that's to deal with crime and disorder in the community. So we're not separate. We're not different, and we need to bring ourselves together, because without doing so, we'll never be able to accomplish objectives 2 and 3. The violence that's plaguing our community right now is the weapon violence, the retaliatory pattern of violence between groups in conflict with one another. You notice I'm not calling them gangs, okay? Groups in conflict with one another. So much of the violence is about disrespect. It's about foolishness that has absolutely nothing to do with serious criminal enterprise. Is it wrapped around the peripheral criminality? Absolutely it is. But we've got a disease. Okay? This is a public health crisis within our community, in my opinion. And the reason why I say restoring the relationship with our community is so vital, because police absolutely, positively cannot arrest our way out of this crime problem. Okay? We absolutely cannot. People in the neighborhood know who the shooters are, right? Think about people in your neighborhood. A lot of people know. In any given neighborhood, those driving the violence are about 0.3 to 0.5% of the population are driving that disproportional violence, and people in the neighborhood know who those are. My officers know who a lot of them are. The problem is, because we're not working together, we're not able to resolve the violence. We're only going to be able to resolve the violence when the community as a whole stands up, stands side by side with the police, and looks at that 0.5% and says, we love you, we care about you, we don't want to see you end up dead, we don't want to see you end up in prison, but we've had it. We will not tolerate the violence. Enough is enough, and it stops today. When police and community stand up together and look at those individuals and try to help them make better life choices, we can take this community back. We absolutely can do that. I'm excited about the potential here in Pittsburgh because I think we're on the dawn of doing something really great. This event here is an example of just that kind of community coming together, talking about how we're going to work together. My greatest challenge now is step number three rather. How can I improve the diversity of my police bureau? Okay. How many of you young people here in the room, if I say the words Pittsburgh Police, get a picture in your mind? Okay, now let me ask, put your hands up high, How many of you have an impression about what that means? Okay, now, if that's a really positive picture, keep your hand up. Okay, a few hands. All right, we're not doing that bad. I won't be happy until all those hands stand up, because I absolutely firmly believe that the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police needs you. We want you, and we will be much, much, much better when you join our ranks. So you young people, as you're trying to decide what you want to do, ask yourself, do you want to give back to your community? Do you want to serve? And give some thought to joining us in policing. Now, having my commercials over, now let's talk about the hard conversation. How do we keep ourselves, keep the officers safe in these street interactions? I'm going to say a few words about the background, and I'm going to ask Commander Holmes to follow along with me. There's a lot going on when officers and young people of color meet on the street, particularly at night, particularly in some of our more dangerous neighborhoods. Officers, all across this country, officers say, I lay my life on the line every day to serve the community. And that's largely speculative in most communities. That's not speculative here, it's real. Since 2009, we've had 3 officers killed, 1 shot and paralyzed for life, multiple shot, wounded, and they were able to recover, and even more shot at. So it's like a real thing, okay? So when officers begin an interaction, at times the stress level is extremely high. The perception of stress is very high on both sides. Is it stressful to interact with the cops? Yeah, I'm here to tell you. My blood pressure goes up and my chest goes like this when there's a squad car in my rearview mirror. Okay? It's a thing. All right? It's not just you. Okay? It's a thing. So when you bring two individuals together in a context where both are stressed, this is a volatile situation. And when we're under high levels of stress, sometimes we don't think well. We don't make good decisions because the wrong part of our brain is driving our decision making. So that's the volatile cocktail that happens when officers and young people come together in a context, particularly where there's suspicion of criminal conduct. Okay, so it paves the groundwork for a potentially volatile situation. I'll ask Commander Holmes come up and talk about what's the best way to interact with an officer to keep you safe and keep them safe. Commander Holmes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The best way to keep yourself safe and to keep the officers safe is to not feel that something's going wrong. There's avenues for you to address those grievances, not at the time of the interaction with the officer out on the street. Calling people like me, like Chief McClay, our Internal Affairs Division, Citizens Police Review Board, etc. But when you're out on the street and engaged in an interaction with an officer, just be respectful and abide by what the officer is saying. Again, recognizing that it may not be correct at that time, but there's ways for you to handle it. And I'll give you an example of myself before I became a police officer, and the reason why I became a police officer. Myself and a good friend of mine, Brian Roberts, we both went to Penn Hills, graduated from Penn Hills High School together. We were working at Three Rivers Stadium, the old Three Rivers Stadium. We were driving from our home in Penn Hills down Route 28 on our way to Three Rivers Stadium. We were pulled over by one of the borough police officers on Route 28, said we were speeding. So I'm the passenger in the car. Brian Roberts is the front seat driver of the vehicle. I look over and I see how he has the steering wheel gripped and he's shaking. And so I can only see him. So I turn a little bit more and I see the barrel of a gun pointing at his head by the suburban police officer. And, you know, Brian's standing there, his voice is trembling, and the officer is saying to him, I need to see your driver's license, your registration, your insurance card, those three things that we always ask for. Well, Brian, you know, being, you know, very low-key, good person, said, officer, my driver's license is in my back left pocket, my owner's card and insurance is in the glove box. Didn't make any further movements or those quick movements towards those areas, right? And the officer said, no problem, go ahead and reach for them. So I had my hands on the dashboard, because I see him shaking, I had my hands on the dashboard, and I saw what I saw in terms of the weapon. So anyway, we go through the traffic stop, everything, the license is good, owner's card, it was actually his mom's car, everything was good. And the officer said, you know what, this is in the early 1990s. You know what, it'd probably be better for you, you two gangbangers, to stay on that side of the river, and don't drive on this side of the river. You know? And so thinking to ourselves as we drove on down 28 towards River Stadium, I said, you know what, this was a nightmare. And my parents raised myself, and I know Brian's parents raised him, to respect our elders, to respect law enforcement, and to always obey what they're doing out at that time, because you won't win. You won't win. So we did that. And then, of course, we went back home and told our parents, and they contacted the Suburban Police Department. We filed a formal complaint, etc. But I thought to myself at that time, I think I'm going to become a police officer, because I have to fix what just happened to me. And lo and behold, you see me now in 2014 as a police officer for the city of Pittsburgh, and Brian's also a police officer for the city of Pittsburgh. So this was our way of trying to get those checks and balances out there by joining, like Chief McClay just told you, by joining the ranks and then trying to make a difference. So again, I appreciate you guys having us here today on Saturday to talk to you. Certainly something that we enjoy doing and like doing, and we're going to do more of. So thank you.
And before we wrap it up, there's one phrase I want everybody in this room to remember. Okay, one phrase. Think about it, remember it, practice it, so under stress you can still perform it. Officer, I'm trying to be respectful. Please tell me what it is you would like for me to do. Okay? Officer, I'm trying to cooperate. You know, I'm trying to be respectful. Please tell me what it is you would like me to do. Okay? I am going to make sure that my officers are trained to listen for that particular phrase. Because again, when stress levels are up there, sometimes human beings, whether they're police officers or young people, act inappropriately. And so I want to plant the seed that when they hear that phrase, that will remind them that they may be getting out of control. Because my officers are human beings too, and human beings make mistakes. So please, anytime you feel a situation escalating, and you feel the officer is the one escalating it, officer, please, I'm trying to be respectful. What is it you'd like me to do? That's what the cops are going to be trained to listen for. So again, thank you. Thank you for being here, and please give us some consideration. I'd love to see some of you join us.
We now have President of Noble, Ted Johnson. Thank you.
I want to piggyback off the chief and the commander as well, but I want to tell you a little bit about my background and a little bit about Noble. I come from federal law enforcement, not local. Noble, the acronym, stands for National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. That means that minorities and women who are in all phases of law enforcement, the executive, the decision makers, are part of Noble. Now, we have an associate membership that you don't necessarily have to be a captain or above in any one of your agencies, but we are looking for associate memberships, and we plan in the future to start a collegiate chapter here as well that will work with Pitt, Duquesne Community College, and we'll have we would like to have one local collegiate chapter. What we are doing is, and what our emphasis is going to be, is to help the chief in recruitment. I guess my short message to you today is there is a problem. There's a problem in our communities, not only in our communities, but in everybody's community. We lost an FBI agent not in Homewood, not on the north side, but in Fox Chapel. So this violence and the school shootings are not only in poor areas, they're in all areas. To be part of the solution, Noble's emphasis is on recruitment. If you want to see change in your neighborhood, then your neighbors, your partners, your sisters, brothers, and your moms and dads need to see faces that look like you. So in order to do that, you need to prepare yourself for a life in law enforcement. Not only on the local side, state and federal law enforcement, FBI, Secret Service. Those are all agencies that are looking to recruit people that look like us. As far as the rest goes, I want to make this short statement and then I'm going to sit down. When you are pulled over, I want to piggyback off the chief's statement and off the commander's statement as well. When a flashing light goes on in back of me, I also, my heart starts racing because I'm trying to figure out what is it that I've done. I want to be safe, and even though I know that I was a law enforcement, federal law enforcement, I want to get home. First and foremost for you is not trying to show your partners that that you're a man. Your first thought should be, I want to get home, I want to be safe in order to make that complaint that Commander Holmes talked about. So when you are pulled over, hands on the dashboard, I love this statement the chief just told you. If you do what you need to do to be safe, and I want you to treat that officer as if it were your uncle, your dad, or a family member. You want them to come home safe when they leave with that uniform on. You want them to come home safe. You want the people that they pulled over to treat them with respect. So do as you want done. Make sure that you're safe, and in your mind, you want him to be safe as well. If you have that mindset, you'll make it home, and that's all we're doing. For those of you who are interested in the collegiate or any information as far as Noble goes, I will be around for the rest of the conference, and my name is Ted Johnson. Thank you.
Okay, please heed those words. I think we understand what's going on, and I thank the chief and the commander and the president of Noble for those words and for their participation today. I'm going to bring back Al. He's going to kick off the final round table. Okay.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. So here's how this is going to work. First session, I'm going to cut it down to 15 minutes. Actually, I'll cut it down to 10 because you guys have been at the table already. Hopefully, you've already started to have some conversation because we got a lot of tables to rotate through. We're going to try to get everybody through. We're going to try to be respectful of the time that we set to end. Although I'd like to take a little longer because there is so much that we can share here and will benefit everybody. So, suffice to say, every 15 minutes, my alarm will go off. I'm going to have you rotate the tables. We're going to go, and you guys are going to come over here, you guys are going to go there, and you guys are going that way. So we're going to serpentine throughout the table in the back there. You're going to come all the way back up to the front when it's time to rotate, okay? We'll keep you straight. Don't worry about that right now. We'll keep you moving in the right direction. Students, I want to hear you asking questions. I want you to find out a pertinent fact about the professional in front of you. When we get ready to close, I'm going to ask some of you to tell me what you found out about them, okay? Professionals, share your journey. Share your journey. We heard a little bit of it inside. Continue that dialogue. Continue with the theme about being bold and that failure is not fatal. This will benefit these students for the rest of their life. So, with that being said, I'm going to start the clock, and I'll let you know when it's time to rotate.
Only the professionals are rotating.
No, only the students are rotating.
All professionals.
The students are rotating. We want to rotate the individuals?
They can handle that. Practice would have been inside.
They got it?
You practice.
That practice. It wasn't intentional practice, but I practiced.
Minimize interference.
You know what, you're right. You move one person versus a group. All right, so we'll do that. Students, you're going to stay put. We're going to change it up this year. We'll rotate the professionals.
Yeah.
All right? Well, I'm getting looks from some of these professionals like, wait. It was Ron's idea. All right, so this first session, we're going to give you guys, we'll do the 15. We're going to do the 15. I'm going to start the clock, and I'll let you know when it's time to ring. All right? Where are you guys going? Okay. All right, so go ahead.
There you are in the right in the middle.
All the way up to the front.
Let's start. I just want to get to know everybody, your name, appropriate when you
I did. I told you I like but that's insane.
Where's your paper?
I have it.
What do you mean you don't have one?
I didn't get one. They got that for whatever, anything. Trauma related is kind of funny.
on how you get through that hurdle, get over it. What have you done very So how do you get to that point? That's great, by the way.
I just learned how to stop talking class and get my grades up, and the teacher is still helping me learn, so they don't get smart. It's not even
That's great.
Keep track of day-to-day operations, money, and finances of the board. Well, when you shoot, give me a question, man. Oh yes, I was very nervous and scared when I was in college because that was the first time that I had to be out on my own. I no longer have my parents there.
What do you think you done? What you just did? You said you do have an opportunity to help. How are the rest of your friends?
And that's a federal law. You're automatically discharged from the military. As part of that, you're granted an additional 10 points on any civil service test that you take. It depends. Generally, it's 100 points on the test. Maybe more than 100 questions, but it's rated at 100 points.
And then I turned around and said, you know what, let's call each other. My son. He said, nobody talks on the phone. Like I guess
and like when my mom first told me about it, I was like, no, I want to get here. I was real upset. But now I'm upset when it's